Hello everyone and welcome to this video. In today's video we're going to be viewing MegaTagmention's Blanc Neptune vs Zombies. The game was produced by Idea Factory and is developed by Tamsoft and Compile Heart. The game's basically a sequel to Action Unleashed, but is it anything like Unleashed or is it something completely different? Let's delve in and find out. The game's story is set where the 4 CPUs have chosen to go to school and basically learn more about game industry and its people. Yes, I know how it sounds. Fan service right from the very start, and you're correct, it is. The story for this game is basically like the previous spin-off series, and doesn't have any actual connection to the main story itself, but instead borrows various events from past titles and then puts them into the game in various points as either jokes or as an excuse to break the fourth wall. The game's main story is that the 4 CPUs have gotten together along with the 4 CPU candidates and a few other characters such as Uzume and Tamsoft to create a low budget zombie film. The gang have come across some odd type of zombie characters at school and around the local area and have chosen to use them in their own zombie horror flick that they're making. It's a usual Neptune adventure, all of the silly humour you would expect from the gang. And it's a good story, but honestly I didn't feel it was as good as with the previous game, which was Action Unleashed. While the story is good, and I do love seeing Vert in a sexy school uniform with what's essentially a miniskirt that's no bigger than a belt, I just feel that it wasn't as good to me as the previous game and felt that certain events didn't make any sense. It felt a lot odd with how certain events unfolded and how the ending just sort of happens. I also felt that the story was very short considering what it is. I do understand that the game is a spin-off title and I wasn't expecting it to be that long, but the game's story just felt rather short. When it comes to the game's characters, all the usual cast are back and are making an appearance, along with Demi God and Famitsu from the previous title. The gang's back together again, but this time in a school environment, where they're all dressed up as schoolgirls, doing another zombie film, which takes various shots of other games such as Metal Gear Solid and the Resident Evil franchise. The girls' usual humour is here, and nothing's ever taken too seriously, and you can expect a constant fourth wall break from Neptune herself. It's a good group of girls, but I do feel like it's a missed opportunity that really has been missed here, and I mean really missed. For example, it would have been great if they had had other characters in the game such as Mages, Tekken and Red, and possibly a few of the other girls in this game actually join and be part of a sort of rival schools thing as it were. We could have had a sort of spin on the Senran series and had the girls from one group meeting a group of girls from the other group and sort of pair off against each other. It would have fit perfectly here with this game, and it would have been a great addition and a great nod to the Senran series. And it just seems a huge missed opportunity not to have put this in the game. It just feels like wasted potential. The gameplay in the game is essentially the same as what was in Action Unleashed. However, a few changes have been made here and there, and honestly I don't like a lot of the changes that have oddly been made here. To begin with, the game places you in an area and you're faced against a horde of enemies, which you have to defeat, and then eventually after you've defeated enough enemies, you fight a boss at the end of the level. This formula was basically the same in Action Unleashed, but here in vs Zombies it's been changed a little bit, and honestly I can't say it's for the better. This time around you have less enemies on screen at once than what was in Action Unleashed, and I don't understand at all why this is. The skill system has also been changed, where in Action Unleashed you could perform a special move and then find a net bull to replenish your meter. Well, you no longer have this in vs Zombies. Instead, you can perform about 2 special moves from your skill set and then have to wait for the meter to replenish itself, and it's really slow at doing this. Another odd feature is that some of the levels are rather big and open, and barren. It's bad enough you have less enemies on screen in this game, but then to oddly make areas open up and just have nothing there at all, it just kind of seems rather stupid. I'm not saying that the gameplay in this game is essentially bad, it's just that when you compare it to the first game of this type, It just feels as if it's taken 2 steps back, as it were, and that the only real thing that has this game make any progress from the first is that this has a multiplayer option, which sadly isn't even that good when you think about it and actually get down to it. Graphics for the game are generally good, and they do look good as the previous version, and it's possibly got a few improvements in various places, but in all honesty it really is hard to tell. The graphics are good, and the game ran really well at 1080 with 60 frames per second, and I didn't suffer any slowdown, and personally I never ran into any graphical glitches or errors. I did find the game oddly had long loading times however, and I'm not exactly sure why this is, because when I played Action Unleashed, those levels pretty much just load instantly. However, loading times in these games seem quite long, and I'm not too sure if this is because some levels are bigger, which oddly means that the game requires more loading time to load each one, but it just feels rather strange, considering the previous game's levels just loaded instantly. I don't really understand why there is a delay here, and I can only assume that it is the whole level being loaded at once. The graphics in general are quite good, and they do look like the past previous Neptune titles, so I can't really complain too much, because I do love the Neptune series, and I do love the style animation that this game has. The world in which the girls explore in this game feels rather small in comparison. You have a few locations in which you travel to, but oddly most of these locations feel rather samey. You have the school itself, but that feels rather small once you're actually in it. It generally consists of about 4 or 5 rooms, and then a hallway, and that's it. You then have campus, which is one of those odd areas, because it starts off small with a few enemies on screen, but then bizarrely opens up to be way much bigger than it actually needs to be, with no enemies on screen at all. You then have a wooded area, which just feels like a circle with a few obstacles in places to make it seem different to what it actually is, and generally speaking, this pattern tends to follow throughout the entire game. They're not bad levels, it just feels as if some levels are rushed, or that some levels are incomplete in some way. The levels do a decent job of providing you a world in which you can explore in, but it just feels yet again like another missed opportunity. Why not add a type of RPG style element to the game, where you have it where, when you're not doing missions, you can actually explore a fully created school on campus, and interact with other students and the other CPUs themselves. Even if this was the only open world-esque location, it still would have done a huge amount for the game, and would have made it come across that much better. It just feels like something that could have been done, but just wasn't. If you're looking at purchasing this game, I can only really recommend it if the game is on a super cheap sale. I do love Neptune and the gang, and truth be told that whenever I see a new Neptune game come on sale, I pretty much buy it instantly because I do love Neptune, and a Neptune game always brings a smile to my face, even when I'm super down. However, I have found that some Neptune games are better than others, and with this being a sequel from Action Unleashed, I would honestly expect this to have been better in every aspect, but the truth is, it just isn't. The story, while okay, is incredibly short, and realistically it should have been longer than the first. Yes, once the story is done, you can keep advancing some characters and do various other bits here and there, but it just seems rather pointless unless you're a hardcore completionist. We also have to talk about the game's multiplayer mode, which originally didn't work at all when it was first released. Then a few weeks later it was sorted out, but then turned out to have a regional lock on it. Because reasons. You can now play multiplayer mode, but in all honesty, when I did test this recently, I was in a lobby for over 15 minutes before one single person showed up, and then got disconnected within 1 minute. So really, don't go buying this game thinking that multiplayer is what it's all going to be about, and it's going to be a huge barrel of laughs. The game's not a bad game, but at the same time, it just feels like a massive 2 steps back in comparison to the first game, and really, it shouldn't be doing this. The game should be longer, it should have a multiplayer that works perfectly from the start, it should have more features, and it just doesn't. I like the story, and I do love hanging out with Neptune and the crew, But the truth about this game is that while the story's okay, it's extremely short-lived. And once you complete the story, I doubt you'll play it anymore after that, unless you're a serious completionist. It's an okay game, but I can only really recommend that you get it when it's on sale, and that you go in there with low expectations. That way you won't be super disappointed or anything. Well, that's it for this review guys. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and please subscribe.